There's something about the woods that unsettles us. Maybe it's the silence, too perfect, too still. Maybe it's the shadows, where the trees never quite let go of the dark. For centuries, people have entered forests and never returned, vanishing without a trace or worse. Found in conditions no living thing should endure. In remote places untouched by civilization, something waits, something that watches. Stories dismissed as folklore, hallucinations, or accidents have one disturbing thing in common. They never end with answers, only with questions and corpses. This is not about fairy tales. It's not about animals. It's not even about survival. It's about what happens when human beings walk into places they were never meant to find. And something, not of this world, finds them first. The death of Bauman's companion, Theodore Roosevelt's monster. In 1890, long before he became President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt published a book titled The Wilderness Hunter. Among tales of rugged survival and frontier life, Roosevelt included one story he never forgot, because it came from a man who wasn't easily shaken. Bauman was a seasoned trapper. He and his partner had ventured deep into the forests near Montana's Wisdom River. It was wild, unforgiving land, home to bears, wolves, and the bitter cold. But something else was there too, something that didn't belong. The two men set up camp, and immediately strange things began to happen. Heavy footsteps circled the tent at night, trees snapped in the distance, and every morning they found the camp in disarray, supplies scattered, tools broken, as if something was testing them. Bauman's partner stayed behind one afternoon to pack while Bauman scouted ahead. When he returned hours later, he found his friend's lifeless body, his neck broken, throat torn open, and massive footprints pressed deep into the soil, walking away on two legs. Roosevelt wrote that the killer had romped and gambled around the body, in uncouth, ferocious glee. It hadn't eaten the man, it had played with him. There was no sign of a bear, no claw marks, just a brutal, deliberate act, and something watching from the trees. Bauman never returned to the forest. He refused to speak of it again. And Roosevelt, a hardened man of reason, admitted that this one story deeply disturbed him. Whatever it was, it hunted like a predator, but not one from our world. What Bauman faced in that forest remains unknown, but his story is not the only one. Across time and continents, people have encountered something in the woods, something ancient, intelligent, and completely alien to our understanding of nature. The next account is older, stranger, and far more terrifying. The river monster of St. Columba, 565 AD. Over 1,000 years before Bauman's story, another tale emerged from the misty wilds of Scotland. It comes from one of the earliest Christian texts in Gaelic history, Vita Columbae, The Life of St. Columba, written by Adamnan around the year 700. In the year 565, St. Columba was traveling through the highlands on a mission to convert the Picts, an ancient warrior people feared even by the Romans. On his journey, Columba and his companions reached the River Ness, but something was waiting in the water. According to the text, the group came upon locals burying a young man by the riverbank. The mourners said he had been swimming when a water beast rose from the depths and dragged him under, savagely biting him. Fishermen in a nearby boat pulled the lifeless body from the current, too late to save him. Columba, unmoved, ordered one of his followers to swim across the river to retrieve a boat. As the man entered the water, the beast returned. It surged toward him, fast, silent, and hungry. The saint raised his hand and made the sign of the cross. Then he shouted in the ancient tongue, "You shall go no further. Do not touch this man. Leave at once." To the shock of the onlookers, the beast stopped, froze in the water, and turned away, vanishing into the river. Was it divine intervention, myth, or a real encounter with something that haunted the rivers long before civilization? Whatever it was, it killed. And it was not the last time something in the highlands would claim a life. Legends are often dismissed as fantasy until they bleed into reality. When rivers hide monsters and forests harbor killers, the line between myth and fact begins to disappear. And sometimes, what emerges from that line is far worse than either. The Wendigo and the Madness of Swift Runner, 1879. In the winter of 1878, a Cree trapper named Swift Runner walked into the Canadian settlement of St. Albert alone. He was calm, well-fed, and said that his wife, 6 children, brother, and mother had all starved to death in the wilderness. But something didn't add up. The winter had been harsh, yes, but Swift Runner was strong, healthy, and clearly hadn't gone without food. Suspicious, the authorities followed him to his remote cabin deep in the forest. What they found inside defied sanity. Bones, human bones, split open, cracked, burned. Some still had flesh. Others had been gnawed clean. It was clear. Swift Runner had eaten his entire family. The Cree believed in a spirit of starvation, madness, and cannibalism. A force that possessed the desperate and turned them into something monstrous. The Wendigo. When someone gave in to hunger so deeply that they consumed human flesh, they risked becoming the Wendigo, losing their soul and transforming into a hollow, decaying predator. Swift Runner claimed he had been possessed, that a voice in the woods called to him, that he changed. Witnesses said he howled at night, walked on all fours, and spoke in tongues no one recognized. Some even said they saw his body shift, stretching, twisting in unnatural ways. Authorities saw madness. The Cree saw something far worse. A man devoured from within by something older than winter. In 1879, Swift Runner was executed by hanging. He died human, but not everyone was convinced he stayed that way. In the dead of winter, hunger can consume more than the body. It can hollow out the soul. But Swift Runner's story raises a darker question. What if something in the forest was already watching, waiting for him to break? The death of John Cobb, Loch Ness, 1952. On September 29, 1952, world land and water speed record holder John Cobb set out to make history on the dark, deep waters of Loch Ness. His jet-powered boat, the Crusader, had already surpassed 200 miles per hour on its first run, making Cobb the first person in history to reach such speeds on water. The attempt took place near Urquhart Castle, a location that, even then, carried whispers of something ancient beneath the surface. But for Cobb, this was a test of technology, not folklore. As he began his second run, everything was going according to plan.
Then, when the loch was calm and the wind slight, Cobb would climb aboard the Crusader, and a few minutes later, the shrill whine of his jet engines told that another attempt would be made on the world's water speed record. Start of the measured mile, and those on the banks held their breath and echoed the words of the Queen Mother. Good luck, John Cobb. Time and again, Cobb made the run, striving, as he had done throughout his life, for new honors in the world of speed. Then one day, we read that he had touched 185 miles an hour, and we were certain he would do it. Afternoon, on the day that was to be his last, Cobb took the Crusader along the measured mile again, faster and faster, until he was traveling at 240 miles an hour. And then...
Until suddenly, Crusader struck a wake. The boat lifted, broke apart in the air, and slammed into the water. Cobb was killed instantly. In the aftermath, some began to speculate. Had the crash really been caused by a simple wave, or had something moved beneath the surface? Believers in the Loch Ness Monster suggested that Nessie might have been involved, that her massive form disturbed the water at just the wrong moment. But most experts rejected the theory. Investigations pointed to a wake left by one of Cobb's own support boats, a tragic, preventable accident. Roland Watson, a Loch Ness researcher, noted the eerie timing of the crash and how quickly the monster theory circulated, but even he stopped short of drawing a paranormal conclusion. In the end, no physical evidence ever linked Cobb's death to the Loch Ness Monster, but the mystery of the loch remains. The darkness below, untouched, unseen, and for some, still very much alive.
Cobb took the Crusader along the measured mile again, faster and faster until he was traveling at 240 miles an hour. And then